We're down at Upcycle Cornwall CIC. We're a community interest company based in Portreath Retail Park. It's all about reusing resources. So anything that can be reused, we'll try and reuse it. So we have a refill station. You can bring your empty bottles down, get them filled up with washing up liquid, dishwasher powder. A year and a half ago, we received some money from the Cornwall Good Growth Shared Prosperity Fund to do a feasibility study on our building to see if it was possible to retrofit our building and become a warm, light-filled, airy space that feels nice to work in and is accessible to everybody. Yeah, to make the building warm, because at the moment it's really not warm, and to give us really designated spaces, because we've just been hoarding stuff in corners for 7 years and kind of pushing stuff aside to make space for the next thing. We usually run a repair cafe once a month where a team of skilled volunteers come along to fix your everyday domestic items. And we run workshops, so we work with different communities. We have a regular stitch club, which is all about knitting, crocheting, hand sewing. There's a lot of creative people in this area who don't have either the tools or the resources to do their creative thing. The most popular reason why people come here is for camaraderie, to meet with like-minded other people who share their passions and their interest. And that, I think, is the main reason why people come here. We're really proud of ourselves for actually getting this far, and really thankful to the team at the Good Growth Fund for helping us get through the funding process, because it isn't an easy process. They've been super helpful.
We're actually at the entrance to the Holy Trinity Church. It's a rather beautiful church. It is one of 40 Cornish churches listed in the top 1,000 churches in the United Kingdom. Outside on its grounds, the War Memorial, which was erected in 1920, and that is a very strong focus for the town as well as the church. The town itself has known better times. It was very, very wealthy back in the 1800s. The town itself, unfortunately, has not seen any great level of investment, and it has steadily deteriorated. In 2022, there was a project looking at the town and its revitalisation, and one of the projects that was identified was the need to improve this area, which is recognised as the historic quarter of the town. The working group came up with a package of enhancements. The intention of the funding behind the town's revitalisation project plan was very much to look at what was feasible in terms of improvements to the town, in some other smaller projects to actually get on and do that work, in the case of the piazza work that is going to go ahead here. It will provide, I think, a measure of pride, and I think if we create an area which is much more inviting, and it provides an area where people can congregate and enjoy their surrounds, it will be a big benefit to St Austell Town.
We are at Polter Park, our home ground. We are working on a redevelopment. There's nothing of this standard directly in St Austell, so we're in the National League system and we play at Step 5 in the Western League. Our existing grandstand and changing room building was, I think, built in 1946. That building is probably past its sell-by date. The grant from the Community Capacity Fund has meant that we've been able to draw up plans to REBA Stage 2 for planning application for a complete redevelopment of the ground. That will be a new 3G pitch and then a new community building. It will also be used by the Cornwall College group, who will be running some courses on the pitch and using the rooms for classrooms as well. We'll be looking to start disability football. We want to expand the ladies section. Hopefully for the community, it should mean a lot more engagement, a lot more opportunities for involvement. Without the grant, we would have had to find the architect's fees ourselves. So by having the grant, it's certainly enabled the process to be speeded up.
We're here in Sunning Cove in West Cornwall. We're looking at the Sunning Cove Recreation Centre, and we're a community building. It was donated just over 100 years ago to the community of Sennan, so for purposes of leisure and recreation. This is a very unique building in actually the whole of West Penwith. It's one of the very few waterside buildings, so it can be used by lots of ocean sports clubs. So these days the Sennan Surf Club primarily use it for board storage, signing the kids in and out, but we limit the amount of time that we really spend in the building. It's not a nice environment to be inside. So we've got several issues with the building. We carried out some studies on it which basically say that the bank at the rear of the site is subsiding. So we need to demolish the building partly in order to fix that problem. And internally we've got lots of damp and mould, which makes it not a very nice environment to work in. The money we received from the Capacity Fund really kick-started the project. Without the funding, we wouldn't have been able to carry out many of our feasibility studies. It paid for a structural survey, which is where we discovered about the issue at the rear of the building, because originally we were costing up just refurbishing what we already had, and obviously the results of that survey meant that it wasn't feasible. Without that money, we wouldn't have been able to hire our architects that had obviously got us to the stage we're at now. The second story will obviously give a lot more social space, as well as have a proper wet and dry split, so we can have upstairs for our lifeguard training, first aid training. That'll open up many more options for the community for this building.
This is Loo Coastguard Flats, council owned and in poor condition from successive people leaving. So these are slate built, they're 150 years old. They're in basically good condition, the structure. They were built by the Coastguards, really strong, and then left. And so a lot of the internals are rotten, a lot of it needs tearing out and starting again. Overall, they're fine. Three Seas Cornwall is a community benefit society, not a charity, because that allows us to take private investment from local people, so they become genuine part owners of the buildings. There's 11 flats, one's a 2-bed, that's okay, the rest are really small. They were broken up sometime in the 1950s to provide initial housing for local people, especially young people. Our intention 100% is to maintain that commitment. The housing will only be available to people from this town and this community. That's a fixed promise. Most housing, most council housing, is 3 or even 4 bed. There's very little supply of 1s and 2 beds, and something like 70% of the need in this town is for 1 beds. It's a critical gap which is not currently being filled. Cornwall Capacity Fund gave us the critical start that we needed. It's really hard to raise the initial money when all you've got is an idea. They believed in us and they gave us the money for architect, legal stuff and first finance, just to get us going, to produce the documents, produce the drawings, make yourself credible, and then we've got something to present. It was critically important to this huge project. Loo is one of the key core tourist destinations in Cornwall and is completely full. There are very, very few rentals at any price. Housing costs, buying houses, is out of reach of most people, never mind about most low-income people. It's very, very difficult and the economy is being very badly damaged. This is a genuine contribution to helping Loo as a town survive.
We're a community growing organisation. Our aim is to grow food and community in planet positive ways. So we're growing food using organic principles, encouraging biodiversity, and we're doing that with an amazing group of volunteers of all different ages and backgrounds who come and get involved, get their hands in the soil, learn how to grow food and veg. And then we sell our veg to local people through a weekly veg bag scheme, which has a sliding price scale because we want our veg to be affordable so people can pay more, and that subsidises people who pay less. So that's our sort of basic business model here. We are building a building which was funded by the Shared Prosperity Fund, so that's going on in the background as we speak. This building is going to be a game changer for us, I think. So we're a relatively young organisation, but we've grown quickly and been incredibly successful. But the reality is that growing food in planet positive ways isn't financially viable. It's a crazy situation to be in, but that's the reality. So this building is going to enable us to diversify our income massively. It's also going to enable us to give more benefits to the community. We're going to be able to do things like cookery classes. We're going to be able to have more activities for people who maybe are less physically able. So maybe being out and doing physical gardening jobs isn't appropriate, but they could sit somewhere warm and dry and comfortable, but still be part of the project. Having a building like this has always been part of our plan, but we didn't know how that was ever going to happen. If we hadn't got this funding, we would have carried on as we are. But because growing food isn't financially sustainable, it makes our business really hard. So over the coming years, if we didn't have this building, it would be really hard to grow, to develop, even just to continue with business as usual without being really reliant on grant funding. We couldn't possibly have afforded to employ architects or get planning on our own. And it was that sort of startup fund that saw the possibility and helped us to get to the point where we could make it a reality.
St Just is a small town. It's got lots of independent shops, independent businesses, lots of families. In the parish, we have a secondary school, 2 primary schools. I chair Land's End Peninsula Community Land Trust, and like other community land trusts, our aim is to own or produce assets that benefit the local community. The site that we're in today is owned by Cornwall Council. Many years ago, it used to be a children's playground, but at the time we worried about children's heads and concrete. The play equipment was just simply removed, and this has been a disused site ever since. As you can see looking around, it's not exactly an asset to the community at the moment. I think most people in Cornwall know that we've got a housing crisis on our hands. There's 215 households in St Just waiting for housing, and of those 183 households are looking for a small 1 or 2 bedroom home. So we applied for the grant because going through the planning process is quite an expensive process. It's not very easy to get funding, especially when you're a small charitable community group, for that sort of thing. We couldn't go to a bank and get a loan because we didn't have an asset to get a bank loan for. We're very lucky in getting the community capacity grant, which has enabled us to do a lot of the surveys, to do the feasibility work, to work out, can we actually put these houses here? We are doing a lot of work. It does cost a lot of money, and it is easy to sort of think, well, this is just 3 homes. But I think eventually, you know, assuming we succeed at this, that'll be 3 families who'll be very grateful. I think if I'm honest, had we not had the opportunity to have that community capacity grant, I don't think I would have had the energy and the hope that we could achieve this, and I'm not sure I'd have started the journey. So it's enabled me to start the journey, and I'm sticking with it. It's not easy, but I'm sticking with it.